Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you all so much for being here today. We are so excited to get started in this discussion around building mental health programs that really connect and stick with secondary students. I have two amazing guest speakers that I'm going to be introducing you to momentarily. But as you make your way into the chat or into this webinar, please introduce yourselves in the chat. We'd love to know your name, where you are coming from today, and also how you would describe how you're feeling today if you had to describe it as the weather forecast. A quick example of that, I know for me today, I feel like it's one of those crisp, clear, sunny fall days after a few days of some partly cloudy weather. So that's a fun little example. And as you're doing that, a couple of quick housekeeping items. We will be using the chat feature throughout the session. We love participation and engagement from the audience. So there will be a few times like this that I will prompt that. Feel free to use it at any point if you have some reflections or thoughts that you want to share. But we do also have a Q&A feature for you where you can add specific questions that you have at any point. We'll be trying to get through as many of those as we can at the end of today's webinar. I know a popular question that we often see in the Q&A is, will this webinar be recorded? And the answer to that is yes. So rest assured, if you have to hop off early or you know anyone that was unable to make it, we will be sharing the recording to this with everyone that registered. And I'm just taking a peek in the chat to see who is joining us. I'm seeing we have folks from Texas, bright and sunny day, sunny with some clouds. See Utah, beautiful fall day. Let's see, sunny day in Tennessee. Lots of sunny weather. Love to see it. And it looks like we have folks from all over the place. So wonderful. Thank you so much. So continue to introduce yourselves, but I am going to move along to introduce our guest speakers for today. Welcome, Serinda and Kristen. We are thrilled to have you both here. Serinda Swan is an accomplished actor, activist, and driving force behind Blueprint. She has worked on projects for HBO, Marvel, and more recently, Amazon Prime's Reacher. As a director and writer, her narrative-focused approach adds a distinctive touch to Blueprint. Leveraging her extensive industry network and expertise, she contributes to the development of Blueprint's exceptional educational content. So welcome, Serinda. And Kristen Crowe has 20 years of experience in TK through 16 education and currently serves as the Chief Community Officer at Scholarship Prep. She earned both her bachelor's degree in liberal studies and master's degree in school counseling, along with her pupil personnel services credential from Loyola Marymount University, where she began her career first working in financial aid and admissions. Kristen remains deeply committed to her alma mater and proudly serves on the LMU School of Education Alumni Board. Throughout her career, Kristen was a founding counselor at 3 charter school organizations where she created comprehensive school counseling programs, ensuring students receive equitable and trauma-informed support. In her current role, she leads the development of community partnerships and oversees the SEL and mental health programs designed to support the school's most vulnerable youth, including students experiencing homelessness and those in the foster care system. Her work and the programs she developed have been recognized by the California Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Education, and the Department of Justice. Really amazing work. And my name is Kendall. I'm from the Move This World team, where I am the Senior Director of Impact. My background is in social work, and I've been with Move This World for almost 6 years now, where I've gotten to wear a few different hats over the years, ranging from supporting our partner schools and districts with implementing the program to some of the more behind the scenes type work with our program and curriculum development. So that's a little bit about us. And now we'd love to know a little bit about you. So we have a couple of poll questions. Our first question is, which best describes your role? We'd love to know the different roles that are represented here today. So I am a district administrator, school administrator, teacher, school counselor, social worker, or school psychologist, school support staff, or other. And if you do answer other, we'd love to hear more about your role in the chat. And I'm seeing a few different roles coming in through the chat. Mental health therapist, coordinator for social and emotional wellness, principal, counselor. Great. All right. We can wrap that poll up. Looks like we have a lot of you answered the other role, which is really interesting. And then we have a lot of um, clinicians that are with us here today. Great. Well, thank you all. And we have another question. This one, we'd love to know a little bit more about your experience when it comes to implementing and doing this work with students. So, how would you describe your personal experience when it comes to implementing or supporting mental health programs that truly connect with secondary students? Comfortable and confident. I know what works to engage students in mental health conversations. Trying and learning. I've seen some success, but want deeper student connection. Facing barriers, I see the need, but encounter hesitation or resistance from adults or students. Or finally, seeking guidance. I want to help, but I'm not sure what approaches will truly connect with students. I'll take a moment on that. All right, and wrap that poll up. Okay, so it looks like 51% trying and learning. I've seen some success, but want deeper student connection. Seems that's where the majority of the group has landed. But we see a little bit of you are comfortable and confident, which is amazing. And then it looks like it's split between the last two categories, facing barriers and seeking guidance. Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for participating in that. It helps give us a sense of where everyone is coming from today when it comes to doing this work with middle and high school age students. So before we dive into our discussion, we're going to do a quick centering exercise. If you've joined a Move This World webinar or participated in a session with us in the past, you might be familiar with the fact that we like to start things off with something intentional to help us center before we dive into our discussion. So with that, we're going to do an exercise that I hope will help sort of frame this discussion and get us to think about the value of doing this work. So I invite everyone here today to call to mind a student that you have worked with over the years. Maybe a student that has moved you or challenged you or inspired you in some type of way. And we're going to write a message to this student, a quick little message by starting with the statement, "Dear blank, I want you to feel." So if you have pen and paper handy, you can jot that down. If you're working off of a computer, you can type your response. If you have the back of a napkin, that totally works too. And I'm going to proceed with reading 3 different prompts one at a time. As I do so, I want you to just finish the sentence with the first thing that comes to mind. So, dear student, I want you to feel more confident to blank. More confident to blank. We'll move to our second prompt, which is more motivated to blank. More motivated to blank. And finally, our last prompt, more connected to blank. More connected to blank. You can wrap up any final notes or thoughts. And I invite anyone in the audience who feels comfortable doing so to share any of your reflections, whether it be all three responses or one or two of them. As you're doing that, I'm curious, Serinda or Kristen, if either of you have a response or two, or all three rather, that you feel comfortable sharing.
Sure, Kendall, I would love to share. Once you first said it, what instantly came to my mind is one of the first students that I had ever worked with in my counseling career. And for her, what I wanted to is feel more confident and be able to advocate for herself. I think that was
Mm,
something that she was comfortable advocating to me as the school counselor, but being able to find that right support and feeling confident in it. More motivated to love herself. That was something
mm,
that we had been working on, and I truly hope that she got to a healing place of being able to love herself, and then more connected to her support systems. I think that ties into the confidence of advocating herself for herself and being able to connect to those support systems that she had.
beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
That's so lovely. I wish my job allowed me to interact face to face with more kids. I think what happens is I get to be the storyteller behind and then put it to the front. So the first thing that came to my mind was like little me and the reason why we do Blueprint. Um, and so the things that I want for her, for me, or I wanted for me, that I want for all children as they grow, is I put, Dear little me, I want you to feel more confident to believe in yourself, more motivated to challenge the labels that were given to you or the belief systems that don't serve you, and more connected to your value in this world, uncompromised.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing, Serinda. And I'm seeing in the chat, I want you to feel more confident to realize the power of your own voice. Beautiful. Yep, voice. I'm gonna echo that. Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for participating in this. Hopefully it helped kind of frame things for us and get you in the mind of thinking about why we do this work and why it is so important. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen share so that we can focus just on Kristen and Serinda as we have this discussion. Um, and let's get into this discussion. Kristen, I'd love to start with you first, because I think that you offer a really valuable perspective, having lots of experience in the field when it comes to this work. And I think it's important to start with the honest part of this discussion, which is the fact that supporting adolescent and teen mental health can bring unique challenges. Sometimes there's hesitation or resistance, even, or just uncertainty about how to approach mental health and well being at this level. From your experience, what makes this work challenging at times? And what do some of those challenges look like in practice?
Yeah, thanks, Kendall. One, I'm glad that we're starting with this piece first, because I think everybody on here can agree it's hard. It's just it is a tough thing of what we are all trying to do, obviously with the best interest of all of our students and our families at heart. But some of the challenges that we've really faced is one, there's just a lot of stigma around mental health. So really being honest with ourselves as to what we were trying to get started and what we were getting ourselves into from the beginning, I think was the biggest piece, or I want to say the first challenge. So really as a team, we had to come together and decide, one, identify what our challenges really were and what were the biggest barriers, and then two, how we would handle that and how we would kind of tackle that without just throwing everything out that we possibly had in our toolbox, because it was from a lot of educators who've had a lot of experience too. So you have a lot of different kind of minds coming together. But really, some of the major barriers that we faced before we really began was just a lot of the cultural differences. In a lot of the communities that our schools are in, it wasn't something, mental health is not something that was spoken about. It wasn't something that was addressed within the families. So really being able to want to bring this to the students, we had to also really address it and be able to support the families as well. But really also a big component to it was as we're starting it in, middle school, we've had students that have never had a conversation in their previous education years of talking about anything related to mental health. So there was just that challenge of being able to educate them from ground zero, of really working on those basic foundational skills too.
Amazing. And it sounds like you spoke a little bit about where your district started with some of that, but is there anything more that you would share about how you approach this and with those challenges in mind, how you did get started?
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of sat together with those pieces of, hey, how are we going to tackle this? Because we want it to work well. We knew if we just went all the way out, that it could have been a big fail. And I will be totally transparent. We did start a lot of this in the height of COVID. I had started at the current organization Scholarship Prep the year prior to COVID, and it was doing a lot of the research of being able to find the right pieces to bring in to build our mental health programs, which included an SEL curriculum. Being a former school counselor myself, being able to find a curriculum, one that was easy on our teachers, that was going to be a super light lift was huge for us. One, just teaching in general takes so much work and so much planning. So not wanting to add something else onto their plates, but also coming from a perspective of, I went to college to be able to teach SEL, and that's my comfort zone. But it's not the same thing for teachers, and we don't have that same expectation for them. So really doing our research and our footwork beforehand to find the right supports for our classrooms, teachers, and so that they also feel supported in the process. So finding that right material was absolutely huge for us, but also doing a bit of a slow rollout. So it wasn't, hey, we found a curriculum, every classroom gets started tomorrow and we get the ball rolling. It's piloting in the right classrooms to be able to see what's working, what's not working before we roll it out as a full organization, but really taking that feedback from our teachers and taking that feedback from our students as well, because if they're not enjoying it, then we can't keep pushing forward. Also a component to that was doing a piece with our families. So when we're introducing this, we want to be sure, we're using the right language with them as well. Because when we say things like mental health disorders, red lights go off on everyone of, no, I don't have that. So really being able to educate our families on what mental health is, what supports truly look like, what is available to them. But again, it was a bit of a slower rollout. We really relied on our school counselors to go into the classrooms and have those mental health presentations to just build those foundational skills with our students, so that a lot of the language that we were using, it wasn't something shocking or anything. It just became part of their norm, which has been amazing.
It sounds like you had such a thoughtful and intentional approach each step of the way, which is
absolutely
amazing and makes all the difference. And I'm excited to learn more about that and some of those different pieces. I'm gonna shift gears a little bit though, and I'd love to hear from you, Serinda. Your organization focuses specifically on middle school age students. So we'd love to hear more about your journey with this work. Can you tell us a little bit more about what led Blueprint Kids to creating the content that you do and why this age group?
Absolutely. First off, hi everyone. I will be probably the most nervous out of anyone here. I you can put me on a stage at like Comic-Con and I'm cool as a cucumber, and here I'm like, why are my hands sweating? But it just means I care, and it means that I'm really, really honored to be here. Obviously, talking on a panel, Kristen, your work is incredible, and Kendall, we've worked together closely with Move This World and Blueprint, and so it's such a lovely thing. And I people say that there's imposter syndrome in acting, and I always have imposter syndrome in ed tech, and so I'm like, okay. But where I come from and where we really based this out of was the science, was to look at it. And we had a company beforehand that was in ed tech from 2016 to 2020 that focused on civic action. And when we saw the pandemic come through and what was happening with education and this sort of, well, kids are going to have to work harder, and we're like, that doesn't sound like a solution. We need to figure out what is the scaffolding around our children, and what are the life skills that we can give them to be able to deal with these skill sets that they're going to have to be learning at a rapid pace, and also the world around them changing. So we went to the Center for Adolescent Brain Development out of Berkeley and looked at what the age was for when self-identity starts to change from the parent to the peer. And biologically, that's right around middle school. So you start getting the I want to fit in, you start getting the mammalian brain, the pack mentality kicks in, and you start seeing these different behaviors. And we thought, well, what if that's when we started talking to kids about SEL or emotional intelligence? What if that's when we started giving them tools not to just react, but to be able to pause, create space, and then act through tools that we can give them, and tools that I wish I had. I started the company around a concept of what do I wish I knew then that I know now? And how when I talk to people about the knowledge I've built as an adult, I'm just preaching to the constituents. I'm not actually giving that information back because we've lost connection with our elders, which, as I say, I'm like, did I just call myself an elder? But I think some of our greatest value comes from our personal experiences. So I thought, how dare I get into education further? I just went to high school. So I was always, I wasn't taught the difference between intelligence and institution, that I thought I needed to go to an institution in order to be educated. And what I realized and what I have in intuition is my institution. So I go through a process of imagination and creativity, and that's how I really move through the education space, because I'm a storyteller. And so I went to my team. That's where I've worked with Disney. So I went to the animators there, and I went to some of my amazing friends like NBA players or brain coaches. And I was like, what if we just told stories? It's the oldest format of connecting humans together and sharing information. What if we did that? And what if we did it for the shortest amount of time while kids are on screens? Worked with amazing companies like Move This World, where we know it has the pedagogy that can wrap around it, the support, the amount of time they've been in this industry. So we know, Kristen, to your point, that it is tested with kids, with families, with schools, all of this. And we went, okay, we need to do the same due diligence. And so we've piloted in schools, we've worked with superintendents, with teachers, with counselors, with families, to make sure that the content is highly engaging, but that there is no specific point of view that we are trying to drive home, because every mental health journey is their own. If you think of it as a math class, it's not one equation and one answer. When you go into a class and there is 30 students, and you're working with emotional intelligence or SEL, it's 30 students with 30 questions and 30 answers. And how do we build support around that? How do we personalize learning? And so that's where Blueprint came in. And so we animate it and we use real life. I think we have some video footage of that. But I was able to get some of the top animators in the world right now to come on board to make sure it doesn't look, oh, there's Lori Hernandez. She's a gold medal gymnast, which you can clearly tell. So right now she's teaching breathing techniques. We've got Donovan Taylor Hall. He is a mental health advocate for kids. He talks about learning how to make friends and also how to lose friends, and talks about goal setting and being able to, you'll see, yeah, micro goals. She's a race car driver, Aurora Strauss. So you can see a lot of it tends to look very like what you would see, like you watch, hockey at night, and then all of a sudden in the morning, Jason Demers is in your classroom talking about perseverance and talking about how he almost quit. Karl Anthony Towns is a major NBA player. He dealt with a lot of bullying. His mom actually passed away in COVID. So we talk about what does grief look like at the same time as success. So we use this highly engaging content because we're in competition against the iPhone, right? Against TikTok, against all of that. And Kristen, to your point, we want to make sure that the time we get in the classroom, that we're making a difference, and that we are truly not giving another thing to teachers and say, if you could just learn this for my benefit, because we're a company that we want to make it, like, no, this has to be something that is engaging, that starts conversations that kids can use. It's very multifaceted. Kids can use the beginning of the story to learn something, and then 3 weeks later we'll be like, wait, Carl Anthony Towns practiced this or this. So we first based it in science, and then we looked at the science around community. We looked at retention for students, for children. We looked at engagement, and then we took our theories and then we tested it for a couple years, and now we're full launch, and yeah, very excited to be partnering with Move This World. And obviously, it's something that's very important with implementation for us, because we wanted to make sure that we weren't just sending more videos or putting kids on screens and being like, we're doing something. I do that already in my job, and I have a lot of guilt around it, where I'm like, kids shouldn't be watching Reacher anyways. But I have enough guilt around kids getting on screens. So for me, it was like, who can we partner with that has the right level and the right ingredients to implementation, that makes sure that it is amplified, and it makes sure that there is so much more learning that's available. And obviously, Kendall, you can talk more about the ingredients to how you guys implement it, because I'm in awe.
Thank you, Serinda. Something that you, before I go into some of those ingredients, something that you shared that resonated with me was thinking about the, like, what would the younger version of myself have benefited from, or and there's so many times over the years when doing this work where there's even just a single exercise that I'll look through and think like, gosh, what an impact this 5-minute exercise would have had on me. Because no one, prompted me to think about that one thing before. Nobody, told me that. So it's amazing just going full circle to hear from you, Kristen, about what your community is doing to make sure that students get this experience, because it really can be so impactful for a number of reasons. Over the years, we have had the privilege of learning so much from the schools and districts like Scholarship Prep that we've partnered up with, around some of the things that can really support this, from an implementation standpoint, because having the amazing content like Blueprint and the exercises and curriculum that Move This World has is one thing, but we want to ensure that it is ingrained in the schools that we work with and their schedules. And the first thing I always stress when we're working with a new school or district is just how important the staff buy-in piece is. It is critical that the adults that are doing this with students are actively modeling and participating in this work with their students. And a story I like to tell that speaks to this is a few years back, we did a focus group with a group of, let's say, 10 students. And just before we met with them, we met 2 teachers. The first teacher spoke really positively about her experience with Move This World. She had a personal connection to it. She told a story that she started to get emotional about her son and how he used the strategies. And you could tell she was really invested in this type of work and spending the time on mental health and well-being. And then we met with another teacher who was very upfront and direct about the fact that this was a challenge for her classroom. She introduced herself and she was like, I'm a math teacher. This is not my thing. I'm struggling with this. It's uncomfortable for me. It's not landing with my students. It's just, it's not working. And then we went and we did this focus group with the students, and 8 out of the 10 students spoke positively about their experiences. They shared stories about, the ways that they were enjoying learning about themselves, learning about their peers, how they found it helpful. It was, making an impact on their day-to-day experiences in school. But 2 out of those 10 students were adamant that their classroom did not find this helpful. They didn't like it. It wasn't impacting them. It wasn't landing. It wasn't helpful. I mean, they were very clear that this just was not working. And come to find out, the 8 students that were bought into it were doing Move This World with a teacher that was very clearly bought into it. And the 2 students that were adamant about it not working were in the class where the teacher was expressing her own discomfort. And it was the most obvious example that I have ever seen of just how important our role as an adult in the room is. So I think that, we speak a lot about the importance of adult buy-in, and I think that is a very clear example of why. So, making sure that adults are actively participating in this and can find a way to authentically engage in it in a way that feels right for them, because we do all come into this work with a different perspective. And some of us may come from a background with more experience or even comfort levels with talking about some of these topics than some of us than other people do. But there's just, it's so broad, the amount of different topics we're talking about. I mean, this is all about being a human. And so I think we all bring something different to the table. And the more that we can support teachers in being authentic about their connection to this work, I think the better. So that's one piece. Student leadership groups have also been another key ingredient. We worked with a school district that had like an ambassador program, and these students would help lead the exercises. They would do classroom drop-ins, they'd put together bulletin boards and support younger students. And when we talked to the students themselves, they actually shared that their school didn't really take it seriously until they started implementing that program. And once they had that in place for all students, they felt more invested in it. So I think student leadership opportunities can be great. We've also seen just making this a school-wide effort and making it clear that like all adults in the building, all students, we're all participating in this. The more that it can feel like something that is school-wide and not just something that lives in like health class, the stronger the implementation is going to be, because we start to see that these are skills that we use in all classes, in all subject areas, in all settings in life. And then the last piece that I would speak to is just leaning into student voice and choice. Over the years, we've always tried to engage students in providing feedback about their experiences. We always try and do focus groups, student interviews. We would send out our scripts for exercises before we filmed anything so that students could actually, review them and share feedback. And we did that so that they felt like they had more ownership over their experience, which I think also can make a big difference. So those are some of the things that we have seen work really well over the years. But Kristen, I'm curious from your perspective, having more of that boots on the ground perspective, what some of this has looked like in practice for your school and district. Are there things that your community has done, steps that you have taken to boost student engagement?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ones is relying a lot on you and your team and really learning from you guys and hearing what other schools have done, because I think that really kind of set us up in a really good place to get started. Because I will second, third, and fourth, you need teacher buy-in. If you have no teacher buy-in, then you don't have a program. So that was a big piece. So one, it's building it as a part of our culture, and not just for our teachers, but our staff as a whole. So for us, it looks like, we have the posters up that are all around campus, from our offices to the restrooms to where staff is too. We incorporate pieces of it into our professional development that the teachers use, and even some of the exercises with the teachers as well. So it really sets that tone of, hey, we're all in this together. That yes, it's the expectation of the teachers to really implement the curriculum in their classrooms, but we're all using the resources from this, that it is student-centered, but there's also that teacher component too. So it allows us to really focus on the wellness piece for the teachers. And I think sometimes that ties it together and it supports that buy-in piece for them. We are also very transparent with our staff as to what our suicide screenings are looking like and what our self-harm screenings are looking like, and the reasons behind why we're implementing these programs, so that they have that bigger picture and that greater understanding that, hey, maybe it might seem silly and it's tough to get your 8th graders, learning how to take some mindfulness, deep breaths, or, building on that curriculum piece, but that so that they can understand it's because we've done 20 screenings, in the past year. So they have that full understanding. And I think that really supports with the buy-in piece, is being fully transparent and honest with them. For us, it's even a part of our interview process, that teachers know exactly what they are coming into. So it's also not a surprise, because that doesn't work out well either, especially when you're talking mental health. but being able to support on that way and having those visual markers around the campuses really sets it that we're all in this, and this is a part of us, and it's a part of scholarship prep. So the staff that joined, that they are aware and they know it. We also work with a lot of different community partners that will work in mental health in different aspects. One I always love to shout out, we work with a university, a local university. They have what's called a teddy bear hospital, where they set up different stations around for students to go to different stations. And it's more about lessening the anxiety of going into medical care. So they teach them what it's like if you go to the doctors and you have to get, a shot, or you have a broken bone. So it really supports, because again, it's all tying together, being able to support the mental health for our students. But it's letting the staff know that's the reason why we're doing certain things too. And I think having that open and that transparent conversation with staff really gets that teacher and that staff buy-in. And that's our key for getting that student engagement up, is really having that teacher engaged.
And speaking of the teacher engagement piece and the role that adults play, if we zoom in a little bit more into the relationship between the adults or educators in the buildings, can you share any specific examples of things that you've seen adults do to connect with students in this work that has worked really well?
For sure. So we're able to go around to our classrooms because we want to be able to see it in action. We can look on the data end, and we know, teachers, we don't want them checking the box that, hey, this is part of the meeting, done, SEL, mental health, done, moving on to the day. We want to see what that really looks like. So you really get to see the teachers who are up, who are engaged, who are doing the activities, who are sharing a little bit about themselves, obviously keeping it still on a very professional, they're still the teachers, but the teachers who are up and involved with the students really are the ones that have that amazing engagement. You had shared earlier that, sometimes it's the conversation that happens. And that's really what we try to stress with our middle school teachers. It's about the conversation. It's not always about, hey, just play the video and, you've done your job. It's about what that conversation can lead to. And of course, there's teachers who are, I'm not comfortable with that conversation. I don't know how to answer that. And that's okay too, because there's also that supportive piece of, hey, continuing the conversation, here's some notes and here's some guidance around it. But we've really been able to support our teachers we have school counselors at all of our sites, and our school counselors, that's their role, is to be able to support the teacher as well. So again, we make it really that team effort of, our admin aren't coming to have a gotcha moment and, hey, you're not doing the lesson well. It's, hey, how can I support you with this too? Or, hey, that got uncomfortable. Let's bring in a school counselor as well to be able to support it. But it's simple things. I have an amazing 7th grade teacher at one of our sites that we have what's called those little breathing buddies that they light up and they change colors of, like, you're taking a 4-second inhale and 4-second exhale. And she does it every morning before they get started. And it's more, just a strategy of a regulation. So it's beautiful to see her engaged with it. I always tell our teachers, sometimes you need it. That's okay. So if it's after lunch, hey, we're taking, we're using our breathing strategies together. But again, it's the teachers who are engaged with the students. They have that understanding as to why they're doing what they do. They can answer that why for themselves. And that engagement, it increases.
That's great. And I love the point you brought up about the breathing exercise. And I think that can be so powerful if we model too, like, hey,
Yeah.
we are doing this because I know I could use a moment to pause and take a deep breath. I don't know if anyone else feels that way. Let's just practice and, practice and do this now.
Yep.
So I love that. On the flip side of things, because I think it's also really interesting to dive into what you may have learned about what doesn't work well. So have there been experiences that have taught your team what not to do when trying to connect or reach with students in this work, whether it be at the school or district wide implementation level, or even just teacher to student, within the classroom level?
Oh, absolutely. We've definitely seen our fair number of challenges along the way. I always think to one of our 8th grade teachers at one of our sites, and that first year was absolutely resistant to all of it. My kids don't respond to this. I don't enjoy this. This is a really tough. And that really helped guide us of opening that transparency piece that I referred to earlier of, hey, let's talk about what our students really are dealing with. And we have an amazing school counselor that was really able to guide her and support her. And I will say she is one of our star teachers now, because she had that real understanding of, okay, why we're doing what we're doing. We've also had some teachers that might share a little too personal information. So it's having those conversations with teachers too of, hey, you are still the teacher. You want to be open and you want to have that engagement, and your students want you to be honest, but you're also still the teacher. So they don't need to know too in depth. But again, it's having these conversations with the staff before they get started, because we know we've experienced it. And I think for them, it lets them know too, like, hey, we trust you. And here's some guidance around it, because we want to support you in this. And like you shared earlier, we don't want to just drop something else on their plate, because good golly, they've got so much going on. So we are there to support them through this process, because we know our kids can't learn if they are having some real challenges, that they can't get a clear thought because of what's going on. So it's been an incredible of seeing maybe things that don't work, I think have helped us really a lot along the way to get to the place that we're at right now.
Absolutely. That's great. Super helpful.
From there, I would love to learn from Serinda or Kendall. As you partner with different schools and districts, what are some of the most important lessons that your teams have learned about being able to support students on mental health at this level?
I can go. It's really interesting because the points that you brought up, I think one of the deepest things that we learned, and that's at the core of the company, is we don't need to be revolutionary. We don't need to come in and say we are the next big solution. We are new. We are this. What we need to do is see what the infrastructure that's already set and support that. And so really do our research on what is currently happening. Well, there's amazing programs that are already in schools. There's amazing teachers, district leaders, superintendents. Like there is so much there. We're not alone. And I think sometimes it's so rude when new companies come in. They're like, we're the answer. And you're like, no. Like there is so many human beings that are working toward the support of the mental health and emotional intelligence of our children. So we need to go and listen. And so one of the things we heard, and I'm so happy you brought it up because it makes it so easy, is this discomfort from students and from teachers sometimes in these situations. And so we went, okay, well, if it's a story, it's like asking for a friend, like in Jim Quick's story where he talks about like feeling marginalized, like what would he do if he felt that way, right? Or in Karl Anthony Towns when he's bullied, like what would that be? And you can talk through another person's story in a way that you can better understand another to better understand yourself. And both the child and the teacher, the reflections we've got through our pilot programs and also with classrooms that it's in right now is the ease in which the conversation happens and how there is so much safety in the story because you can expand upon it, you can personalize it, you can push it away if you need to, if you feel uncomfortable. We make sure that there are pinpoints that teachers are able to see, okay, we need to bring in a counselor here, but there's ways that we looked at what's already happening. There's already really incredible programming in these classrooms. We don't need to come in and say our program's better. We need to be like, no, how do we support? And one of the areas that we saw was content. Content was one of the things that we really needed to get in there and be like, how can we help and how can we support? And for us looking at that side, I was like, okay, that I can do. That I understand. That's an easy place for me to be able to start and to help. But I think listening is the biggest way that we've been able to learn and to humble ourselves to say we are not going to be the ones that know the most, but what we can hope is that we can help the most. And we can do that by going into the rooms with the people that are already helping and ask, how do we support and how do we use our new resources to support by getting kids to a place where they feel more comfortable to come and talk about it, and teachers feel more, and then also studying what's already in schools. So to your point about the breathing, the little light breathing buddy, we want to make sure that we're not suddenly doing a left hand turn being like, well, here's box breath, and we're like, well, maybe we called it something else, or we don't think breathing works, try this new thing of standing on your head. We go, no, breathing techniques are really important. We're seeing them in schools across the nation. So what can we do? Well, we can ask, Lori Hernandez about her breathing technique before she went on the beam at the Olympics and why she did it. And so she talks about the fear, the anxiety, that her body feels like it turns to jello, that she was disassociating from her body. And then she teaches our kids how she does two different breathing techniques, one where she blows on her finger like a candle, and the other one where she's doing a box breath. But that way, what we're doing is we're instilling information that the teacher is already teaching, or now feels empowered to teach even more because they have a thought leader saying it. Or they look really cool because they're like, yeah, remember that thing I was telling you about breathing? Carl Anthony Towns is doing it. And then all of a sudden the kids are like, I want to do it too, right? So we really wanted to make sure that we didn't come in as something new and revolutionary and say that this is broken, because it's not broken. We're in the process of evolution, right? And so I think it's so rude for for new companies to come in sometimes and just be like, shove their way in. And I have so much respect for education and for teachers and for everyone that's involved. And so I can't say that we're done learning. I think our lesson is that we will continue to learn every day, in every success and in every failure. To your point, Kristen, like, you learn a lot from when you get it wrong. And so we do our best not to, but when we do, we sit down as a team and we really dive in and we try to figure it out from there. But yeah, long answer short is we work with educators. We're for educators by educators. And we try to figure out how best to support rather than disrupt. And Kendall, for you, same question.
Well, something I would add to that, slightly different, but something that has stuck with me as a learning over the years, is this idea of like, don't give up hope if you don't see outward excitement or engagement from students right away. There was a survey we sent out a few years back to a school district's, all of the students in this school district, and we got almost 1,000 responses. And I remember just before reading through the results, kind of thinking to myself, "Ooh, what could be in here?" This is middle and high school students sharing their anonymous feedback. And I was so moved by what I read through. And what was really interesting were these stories that students were telling of, hey, I used this breathing exercise in the middle of a football game, or this has helped me learn more social skills. I feel like I'm building confidence. But some of these students expressed that they didn't like doing the program, but they were still rating that they felt that it was helping them develop the different skills within each of the 5 competencies. So even if they didn't like it, they still were speaking to the impact that it was having on them, and not just stopping there, but answering the extra non-required open-ended questions to tell the stories about how it was helping them. And that stuck with me because it was seeing so many students and getting that inside look into what this looks and feels like for them. And there was this big takeaway for me that was like, we might not always see that excitement or engagement off the bat, especially with this age group, but it doesn't mean that it's not working or having an impact on them. And the more that schools can take the time to give their students the opportunity to engage in this work, to learn a lesson from Carl Anthony Towns about the breathing exercise that he does, it just sends a message to students that this work matters. So don't, like, that's my one lesson learned over the years is like, don't give up hope if you don't see that excitement right away, because it doesn't mean that it's not making a difference. And there's plenty of things that we have to do in our day-to-day that we might not always enjoy, like exercising, or even, I look back at some of the subject areas I had to spend my time and energy doing. I didn't like it all, but I still learned and was able to grow in school in a number of ways. And it's great when we can think of this as kind of similar in that way. Um, that's something that I think we've learned over the years. I know that we have 10 minutes left. So Kristen, I as a lesson or a takeaway here, I'm curious, what would you say to districts or schools that are hesitating to implement programming for student mental health with this age group? Why start now?
So I want to answer that, but I want to real quick go back to
Yeah.
you sharing on the not being able to see the impact, because I think that is the hardest piece sometimes as administrators who want to keep pushing forward of nope, I want to renew this curriculum or I want to, and it's if what comes down to, well, what is the impact? I will say at one of our sites, in middle school specifically, we were seeing a lot of disagreements amongst our students and a lot of fights and things like that over time, and really having that buy-in piece from the teachers and teaching our kids some of those foundational skills and learning how to communicate with each other different, that we're at a zero suspension rate, that we're not seeing any of that. Now, of course, there's different words that are being shared with each other, but that's okay. And that's the progress that we always want to obviously see. And that's a piece also that we really share with our staff so that they're seeing it as well too, as to, hey, it might have felt like, that was years ago, where we all just kind of get lost and, you go through the years, but being able to have those little impact pieces, they mean so much. Or when you have a first grader melting down and our counselor will say, what have you tried? I tried my star breathing. I tried my, drink a glass of water. And it's incredible because that the more they continue to practice that when they're in 8th grade or when they're in high school or when they're not with us at school, they still know how to be able to use these strategies. So it's been incredible for us to see the journey over the years. But that brings to kind of the hesitation as for schools, not quite sure where to go. My biggest thing that I can always share is start slow and be strategic. You really, I can't stress enough that don't just throw it on the entire school and just hope it works for the best. Really start slow and pilot it in different classrooms and get that parent and that family engagement piece too, because that's what matters and that's what is able to support us as a whole. But taking that just a mindful approach with it, I think is where the best impact can come from, the best results.
I love that. And I guess as a final question for both of you, what advice or first steps would you recommend? And I guess you kind of answered this, Kristen, with the start slow, but any other advice that you would offer when it comes to building programs that truly resonate or stick with this age group?
Definitely sticking with the starting slow piece and just be very mindful and have your plan as to what you're adding on or what kind of supports. But the support piece, having your admin support, if you're able to have school counselors or school psych or everything, having their support really, really matters, and having their buy-in piece, because that makes it easier on the teachers. But I also think it's a big piece as to if you're working with an outside provider, and for us working with Move This World, and we have other orgs that we work with, being able to rely on them. That I know that if I'm having some tough moments and I can't think this through, that I can rely on, I can call Kendall and I can call Kessa and it's like, hey, this is where I'm struggling right now. But being able to have that direct support back and forth has really mattered. There are different organizations that we no longer work with because we don't have that kind of support where we need it. So I think having that piece of being, again, and I'll say mindful a million times over, but being mindful of who you choose to work with, I think truly matters. And within that organization piece too, I've always asked, hey, who are some schools that I can reach out to that you already work with? So doing that piece too, of doing your due diligence too, of making sure, hey, is this somebody that I really want to get in business with? Because for the mental health piece, it truly matters.
I think for us, we look at, we come in from the engagement side. Watch the content, read the curriculum, see if you are bored stiff, see if you learn something. We laugh all the time in our meetings about how we're like, wait, we're stuck. What do we do? And they're like, okay, let's take some small, simple steps. And we're like, oh my gosh, we learned that from Jim Quick in 7th grade curriculum, right? Like there is so much that we can learn through it. And I think if everyone is, and to your point, Kendall, it doesn't always have to be enjoyable, but if you can figure out a way through it, these are skill sets or life skills that are going to be used in class, at home. Parents are going to start noticing it. And it is, I saw a question come in about preventative. These are preventative because you are starting to see the numbers. And yes, kids might not enjoy it. I didn't enjoy long division. It's a terrible example because I haven't used that in my future. But something else. But the thing is that it is a muscle that we need to learn, and it is a muscle that we need to use. And I think we can't give up on it because it's hard right now. We can't give up on it because it might be inconvenient, but it's something that we really dig in, and we find the people that we like working with. We vet them, we go slowly, because everything started slowly at one point. But see if you would be engaged, see if you learn something, see if it's something that you feel that harnesses the capacity of the heart and not just the mind. And I think that is something that's really important, even if it's not fun. If it harnesses the capacity of the heart, we're learning in a different way. And I think we're learning in a way that's really important for now and for next.
Absolutely. It's beautiful. I know that we have one question in the Q&A chat that I just saw come through in the last few minutes. I think this is a question for you, Kristen. In regard to getting the parents of high schoolers to buy in to a new way of working with their son or daughter, how did you implement the changes in relational thinking?
Can't say that was an easy one, or it's still not. I think it's just being able to be really open and honest with the families and having these conversations, but also giving them really tangible ways as to how they can change that communication if that's what they're looking for. So not just saying like, communicate more with your son or daughter. We have a ton of handouts and printouts, or, our monthly newsletter that comes from our counselor that's giving very specific examples as to what to ask a student instead of when you pick them up after school, how was your day? They're going to say fine. So we're doing kind of that legwork of saying, these are some questions that you can ask. Here are some ways to kind of open that conversations. When we do our suicide prevention trainings with our 7th and 8th graders, obviously the families know about it beforehand. We have meetings beforehand, but then there's also handouts that go home after we have it of continuing the conversation. So it really helps the parents and the families align with us of, hey, we're all in this together for support. So I think having those open and honest conversations, but also being able to provide families with actual material, whether it's a handout or it's just a quick flyer. We also use Move This World for the families to be able to do it at home as well. So again, it kind of continues that conversation, and it's everybody's on the same page together. And I think it's made a difference.
That's great. And I think that also kind of speaks to the other question that came through, which was what models of preventative mental health programs work outside of the school and family context. So we've kind of spoken to some of the real proactive work that you have done in your community to share this information home, keep family members in the loop. I'm not sure if there's anything else that you would add to that point.
Yeah, I think it covers that.
Yeah, great. Well, Kristen, Serinda, thank you so much for being here today. I think this was a great discussion. I know I enjoyed hearing from both of you. Thank you to everyone that participated and joined us. Let's just close before we finalize everything. We'll just close with one collective breath. So I invite everyone to close your eyes or cast your gaze towards the ground, whatever feels best for you. And as we take this final breath, let's think back to that student that we wrote that little message to, and imagine that confidence, that motivation, that sense of connection coming to life for them. Take this first deep breath in and out. Thank you all so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And we hope to connect with you all soon.